So, gentlemen, exciting day. The album is out. What are the feelings at the moment?
Feeling feeling very different to how I felt yesterday. Feel kind of seen in a good
Okay.
way. Yeah.
Is it
I feel
like a weight lifted off your shoulders in a sense?
Um, I don't know. Like, no, I don't think it ever weighed us down. We've just been so excited to kind of share it with people, and now that we're finally got to do that, it is exciting. We were saying earlier that like a funny thing happened with it, where as soon as it was like out and released, we could listen to it kind of almost objectively.
Mm.
Up until that point, I guess maybe in the back of our minds, there's like, oh, we still could change it if we wanted to. We could like do a mix here or whatever. But like now that it's out, it's done, it is what it is. And like I think that's actually been great for me personally to like listen to it that way and know that that's it now, you know.
I'm sure you're still very close to it and you've heard all of the elements of the song so many times, but when you try to listen to it objectively, like you say today is a little bit different. What do you hear? What do you hear in terms of trying to not put your own experience in there, but just listening? What do you hear?
It's a funny thing that comes around kind of irregularly with me, like with our music, say with our music in the past, where sometimes for some reason, for no reason, you can just hear it objectively, and it's really strange because you get like a glimpse into what it's like to
Mm.
be a fan of our music for just even if it's for a few minutes. And yeah, as Damien said this morning, I got that for the whole album, so it's cool. It was really fun. It was really like kind of cathartic or something.
Mm. Right. Great way to describe it, yeah.
And I find it interesting then because when you guys started kind of shaping the band and figuring out what you wanted to do, was the album, is that kind of the first milestone you set for yourself and kind of go like, okay, if we can get to that first album and see how that does, then we can see what else we can do, or how did you approach this from the get-go?
I think we had an album in mind for a long time. Not as something to get through, but something to get right for us. And I think we pretty early on knew what getting it right for us would be. And so it was a case of just doing that. And I think today, that sort of feeling of being able to hear it for what it is maybe relates to that a little bit, is being able to know that we've done the thing that we promised ourselves we would do.
When did you get the first chance to hold like a vinyl of the album? What was that feeling like?
It was recently, not long ago, a few weeks ago.
Okay.
Very surreal, I thought. Very
Yeah.
surreal.
Yeah, I haven't really touched it. Like we got test pressings, and I kind of feel weird about just moving it or touching it. I don't want to like damage it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've not even really looked at it that much, but I looked at it on the day that we got it, and yeah, it was amazing to just hold it in your hands. Something that you've been thinking about and working on for almost a decade, really.
Yeah, and it looks so much better in physical form than it ever did as when we created the artwork and the all the bits that go into it. Just to hold it and look at it, it has a different sheen to it. Everything is elevated and really, yeah, it's class.
But this is an interesting point because you say this is something we've been working on for up to 10 years. And from the outside in, you look at, okay, you started around 2019 releasing a couple of singles, you got some buzz, an Irish band, it gets some hype, and here you are. But it has been a long road. So how have you experienced kind of the ups and downs of that to get where you are now?
I think the album is a representation of a journey, is a representation of, I guess, a journey through from childhood basically into adulthood for the four of us. And it feels like it's kind of been capped off by this album that we've created. Because when we started, none of the songs we have on this album would have ever been written by the people who started playing music together. But somehow we've got here to where we are. And I think that journey coming to where it is feels quite special, I think, to us, you know.
What was that process like to figure out kind of the type of music that you would like to make? Because obviously everybody has different influences and different ideas about how to go about things. How did you kind of navigate those things and figure out what type of music you wanted to make and what type of lyrics you wanted to write and how you kind of wanted to portray this band and convey certain emotions?
I would say it started off with wanting to sound like Damien Rice, maybe, or wanting to sound, you know, certain bands. And I think as we've progressed, it's become not wanting to sound like X, not wanting to sound like Y. And then as we've got through that, it's not wanting to think about it either way. So not factoring in what, you know, who it sounds like, where it comes from, but maybe just trying to do what's best, you know, from a sort of intuitive place, maybe pulling it a little bit away from intellectualizing it too much and making it more intuitive, you know. And I'd say maybe.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go.
No, I was gonna say, because I'm a somewhat analytical person, and it's very difficult to turn that side of my brain off in a way, and for you as well. And then you mentioned it with being able to tinker up until the kind of the latest deadline if you wanted to. How difficult is it to kind of refrain from that and to, as you say, go about it a little bit more intuitively rather than trying to overanalyze and overthink everything?
I think you eventually find a way to kind of check yourself. I do, at least. If I find that I'm following a rabbit hole that might be a little bit more or less intuitive, I try and just I don't know, wipe it away somehow. Just like maybe stop working for half an hour and listen to some, like watch some TV or watch a movie or something to kind of wipe the slate clean and then go in again, and kind of you find flow. Like everyone knows what flow is like, not just in music, you know, in writing or in playing video games, you know, anything kind of becomes mindless and flow. I think that's probably the best like way to find intuition.
I always find that flow state interesting. Is that a similar thing than when you go on stage?
Can be.
I guess, yeah, it can be. Like sometimes, like an hour gig feels like, 10 minutes, you know. So I guess because like the nature of it is like not really conscious, it's hard to know what happens, you know. But I definitely like on stage have to like kind of remind myself to take it in, you know, because and be like, oh wow, like all these people showed up, because you can easily just kind of get lost in your parts and you know, the more you play live, the more you kind of aren't thinking about what you're playing because you're so like practiced. That like kind of talking about what you were saying earlier, whereas like getting out of your own way, and like as soon as you kind of get in your head about like, oh, this fill is coming up, I have to play this, that's when you like make a mistake. So you kind of switch all that off and you just play it because you've practiced enough that you can just do that. And then on stage I think that can like lead to you overstepping that and sometimes not taking in, wow, a room full of people came here to like, you know, enjoy this with us. And like I've definitely had to like kind of pinch myself every now and again and be like, make sure you're enjoying it because it'll be over like really quickly, you know.
No, but that's an interesting point. And as I mentioned, the band has received some buzz over the past few years. Is it difficult to stay both feet on the ground when you see all these things happening, all these opportunities popping up and everything? No. Like touring with Kings and Leon, I mean, the Iggy Pop liking your music, all those kinds of surreal things.
I get what you mean. You would think yes, but I think for me at least no, because we kind of learned along the way that if you are going to listen to any of the good press that you're getting, you need to listen to the bad too. And I can't take the bad, so I try not to take the good either, as much as getting a text from our plugger that Iggy Pop is going to play 4 of our songs back to back. That's going to give you a warm feeling. But at the same time, you just try and just, oh, cool. And then, you know,
you can't get like, I mean, yeah, we're so grateful and everything, but like, if you let yourself get too bogged down, then you start overthinking everything, and you'd be like, you could easily fall into a trap of like, oh, well, Iggy Pop like that song, so that means our next song has to be like this. And
Yeah,
you just can't let yourself.
it's a bit dangerous.
Yeah, it can be dangerous. Yeah, but I mean, like that doesn't mean we're not grateful for those things and people enjoying our music and for people playing our music wherever. We obviously are very grateful whenever that happens.
It feels like everything stems from the idea that you just said, Damian, that when you're playing live, if you think about it, you will make a mistake. It's like uncertainty principle or something. It's like you can either do it and not think about it, or think about it, and that affects it inherently. And you can kind of extrapolate that out. And if you think too much or attach yourself too much to anything, it seems to lean towards muddying it or
Just have an adverse effect.
somehow. Yeah.
But that's interesting then, because inherently kind of what you do is, and I find this always an interesting topic, because inherently what you do is kind of involved with vulnerability and doubt, and kind of presenting something to the world, and kind of being at the mercy of the listener in almost. So how have you dealt with that? And is it, do you try to block that out as well?
I would maybe say let it go. How I phrase it, rather than block it out, because you can't block it out. It's just relentless. And I don't know, I think that people can healthily see good reviews, bad reviews, hear good news, bad news, compliments, insults, but I think if you can try and let go of it all and not attach yourself to sort of any of it, it makes it much more straightforward as well, I think. To write, because you just keep your eyes on what you're actually trying to do, as opposed to trying to convince people to like something they don't like.
Yeah, well, I think one of the most enjoyable things I found of being in this band is following our gut to the absolute end always, and never ever compromising on any aspect of anything. And you can't fail then. If someone doesn't like it, it's nothing got to do with you, because you know that you've done what you can, and it's their opinion. And if someone likes it, it also doesn't matter, because whether they did or didn't doesn't matter, because you've done everything you can. You know what I mean?
Sure. This might be a grandiose question then, but in a sense, do you have somewhat of a mission in front of you, or what do you hope to achieve in a way, or how do you see success? Because the way you speak about it, I watch a lot of sports, and that's a similar thing, where they try to not get swept away by the highs or the lows, and just keep on focusing on that end goal of winning a championship. Do you have kind of that end goal or something like that in mind, a vision? Because you also talked about expectations earlier, and kind of...
Yeah, it's a good question.
I always use the sports team as an analogy for the band as well. It's a good way to compare it. When we were just talking recently about like touring, and how an athlete wouldn't have a bunch of beers the night before a match, we are starting to view it the same way. And that's kind of as I'm getting away from your question now, but
no, that's fine.
Yeah, I think we probably would try and have, not even try, I think we have grown to develop that sort of idea ourselves, which is just until today has been put this album out,
right,
last however long. The next thing will be tour this album and write the next one, because I think it does require, just like with 100-meter sprint, you need to give everything in that 100-meter sprint. If you're doing that run and in the middle you're doing your shopping list, you probably won't win, unless you're amazing. I mean, like, if you're but usually you have to kind of give it all, and I feel like it's sort of the same with us.
I think it's always important to have like something next, and like to like sure you're planning for that, and like we all obviously have like big plans, but like I think it's the little plans and the plans in the next, like plan out your next year and next 2 years, and like that's when things happen, because you know, they're like tangible things. It's like, okay, in January we're going on tour, you know, like we just released this in January, we're going on tour, and then like to have the next thing lined up so that you're never complacent and you're always moving forward. I think that's like bottom line is like every move that we make, we want to make sure it's a step in the right direction and not just standing still or going backwards, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of the last question before we really delve into some of the songs. Was this philosophy that you kind of mentioned, was this always part of the band, or did you have to learn this?
I think this is part of the 10-year journey to this album.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is all part of it, because musically, nothing other than us physically being here, nothing would join the album from the day we met to now. But it's this is the kind of thing we've learned together, we've explored, we've made mistakes, we've, you know, done the whole thing, the whole Greek tragedy, and now we're here. And now we're here with thoughts that will develop, and you could speak to us next year or the year after with a new album, and we could say completely different things.
Yeah.
But there's something, I don't know. There's something to the fact that for today, this is what we've done. For now, this album is what we had to say for now, you know.
This question is going to be kind of annoying, I suppose, but and it's going to be different for all three of you. But which song on the album do you think then represents the band best at this particular moment? And I know, I mean, you have different feelings about all songs, so it's kind of an annoying question. But do you have kind of that feeling, like if somebody knew nothing about the band and they would put on this song, this kind of would give them a good sense of what we are about?
I feel like we should say it at the same time.
Yeah, that's good. Well, I like that.
That'll work.
Okay. We can't tell.
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Last in a
moment.
Oh,
Hey.
Yeah.
And I thought that one.
I considered that one. Yeah.
I considered it too.
Okay, let's delve into that one then. How come that one? Why did that pop to the forefront?
Wait, which one? Because we said two different ones.
Oh, no, your one.
Mine. Well, because I think it is like we intentionally put that song first because we're aware that like a lot of our singles that we've released to this point have kind of, you know, have a certain style and like are a bit more, you know, upbeat, catchy, which is like great, and like that's definitely like a big part of our music. But we intentionally like wrote and put this song first to just kind of wipe the slate clean and be like, okay, you know, you don't have to forget everything you know about us, but like this is the new chapter. This is the Clockworks now, here and now. And this, like we were saying, this is the true story of the last 10 years. The singles were like little snapshots of like a very kind of specific side of us. But like this is actually our musical journey in the last 10 years. And I think starting out with that was really important to get that across, because it's just immediately, you know, setting expectations of this is nothing like we have online. This is a completely different song to what we've written before. And that's what you can expect for the whole album, you know. So I think even though, you know, part of what you asked was if somebody wanted to know, like, what are the Clockworks about? I think that is a good one, because like it's also kind of an outlier. And I think now today we are about just good songs, and it doesn't have to fit in any box. It's just a good song, you know.
Yeah, I think I would pick that song. Philosophically, I would have picked that song for where we are right now, because of that subverting expectation is something that we really were kind of putting a lot of importance on. But then the way you asked which song would, if someone didn't know us at all, I picked Lost in the Moment, which is the second last track. And I think that has everything, including the philosophical side. That has like, it's a little bit different to what we've done. Structurally, it's a little bit different. It's still catchy and great lyrics and all that stuff. So I think it's probably a good overall representation of us right now.
Yeah, you mentioned the lyrics. James, is that something that is particularly your domain, or is it something you all contribute to? How do you figure out what? Oh, go ahead.
I sit in the cafe with a notepad
And there's a look at the world.
writing absolute rubbish, and then waiting for inspiration to knock on the door.
Or the rest of the band's contribution to the lyrics is reading them and going, they're unreal again.
Well,
Yeah.
that's a fun thing, because for you, then Sean and Damian, you can, for each of you, what is one bit of lyric or one little story nugget that you really enjoyed when you first read it, where you thought, oh wow, I didn't realize he could come up with something like this? Or
Oh,
I have one for you.
So many.
yeah.
I have one for Sean.
Oh, go on then.
There's a line, the first line in the album.
Oh, yeah, that was one I was going to pick.
Was it?
Yeah.
First line in the album is a line that I came up with a long time ago, actually. And Sean, I didn't think anything of it, and Sean loved it. And it just stayed in the very back of my mind, because he used to always use,
like years and years and years ago. Just one line, pub words we crawled again. I just thought it was, it's four words, and it says so much, and you get an immediate visualization of what that is. And I think it's so much deeper than what it could seem like on surface level. You could pick that 4 words apart, which is really a real testament, I think, to James's abilities. Just that something that he thought was off the cuff or like not that important had like a profound effect on me, that long ago, and so much so that it ended up being the opening line on the album.
One for me was Life in a Day, which is like the third last song. Verse 2. I love where he's at the flat. They drove me around the bend. They were still there when I got back, and they'd invited over friends. The first time you just were playing that on an acoustic guitar, I was like, that's just again, like it's the exact same thing. It just like paints such a picture in your head. It's just such a brilliant way of putting like that. Yeah,
it's one of my favorite moments of being in a band is the first time you get to hear the lyrics, a new song, and he's sitting in the corner on the couch on the acoustic guitar, and we look at each other, we're like, oh yeah. Oh, you hear that? Oh, that was a nice one. Yeah,
I do think I'm very, very fortunate, and I'm in a privileged position to be able to have 3 people around me all the time who are very supportive, super supportive. And it's like, it's great to write lyrics, but it's really nice to know that you have 3 people around you who are always gonna, like you said, when you said our job is to go wow kind of thing, that has a huge effect, because essentially the 4 of us are the people who the music has to matter to.
Yeah.
And there's no one else in the world that, if we're happy, there's no one else in the world that can tell us our business.
We're the only 3 people that we're trying to impress, I think, at the end of the day. I think so.
In terms of, because oh, go ahead, sorry.
No, I just said it's an honor for me.
No, and obviously the lyrics are important, and they do kind of, I don't know to what extent it is autobiographical, but they do talk about kind of moving to London, to the big city, nightlife, those kind of things, and kind of the experiences of people of your age in the last 10 years. So
wild coincidence. It's mad, isn't it?
Well, it's kind of two-part. How autobiographical is it? Is it very narrative, and like you say, you sit in a cafe and look at people and imagine their life stories, those kind of things, or is it partly also based on personal experience? And also, for you, James, is there one song or one bit of lyric that you really felt passionate about, or something that came from the, well, all of it comes from the heart, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think in terms of the autobiographical question, I would say that maybe the backbone, or the sort of log line of the narrative, the log line of the story is clearly, obviously autobiographical, or at least an experience that we've gone through, because we did move from Galway to London. You can't deny that. But I think that I like the idea of the headlines being autobiographical, so that anything else could be, but isn't necessarily. And so there are named characters in the songs, and there are things that I think if they were in a song alone, you would definitely assume didn't happen or wouldn't happen. But I think I like the idea of playing with that and allowing for it all to potentially be a true story without it necessarily being a true story at all.
Sure. No, I understand that. Well, then kind of the second part. So, what song is really?
I think maybe. I don't know, man.
Well, I can also ask a different question, which is what I find interesting, and this is more of a my grandmother was from Ireland, from Dublin, so I got a little bit of the Irish culture trickled down to me. And one of the things that I used to listen to a lot of Irish folk music because of my dad and all that kind of stuff, but also read like Yeats and that kind of stuff. And all these poets and writers, is there something to say that there is a affinity with words or language in the Irish culture? Is that fair to say?
There seems to be, I would say. There seems to be, because Yeats, for one, like you said, he makes an appearance in the album. Joyce, James Joyce changed, well, he challenged what language could be. Beckett sort of did the same in his way. I mean, you could go on and on. So many. Shane McGowan, his use of words.
Of course, yes.
It's incredible. I mean, Patrick Cavendish, Seamus Heaney. Even like there was the 1916 Rising. The right, these Rising in Ireland. A lot of the people who were sort of fundamentally involved with that were poets. And I think, always kind of that sort of speaks to me, that idea that Ireland's always been full of dreamers and people who, I guess, had a language that they couldn't speak, and therefore sort of used the language they could speak in creative and interesting ways that no one else had ever done before.
And I mean, that's the beauty, I think, of language, and especially if you have some nice lyrics and you put some inspirational or some interesting music underneath it, it becomes even more emotive or more powerful. So what is kind of again, I don't think you have a mission statement or anything, but what are you trying to convey with the words or with the stories in these songs?
I think something we have always, this is one of those things that we've had for years and have been sort of there's been quite a few sort of ideas that we've been on a march towards for ages. And I think we realized them in our own way. We've realized them. And one of them was the idea of an album being like a house. And each song being a different room, sort of thing. And you don't have a house full of bathrooms or a house full of bedrooms or a house full of any one particular room. And the idea that each song can be almost functionally, each song serves a different function or has its place. So in the same way that maybe when you're heartbroken, you feel like only Damian Rice can speak to you, using him again, but only this sort of troubadour, sad folky troubadour can sort of save you. Then you're on a night out, you're not going to be listening to Damian Rice. Potentially you might be listening to whoever else, some sort of party music. But
without naming any names.
Yeah. No libel or slander here. What was the thing? So I guess overall, yeah. So I think it was like that. So a lot of the album was, and this kind of came down to when we were trying to pick the songs as well. I think, was it you who said, Damian, in an interview the other day, that it was quite easy to pick the track listing for a finish, because we thought it was going to be really difficult because we had loads of songs over years, and some of our more popular songs that we love didn't make it, and songs people never did make it. Brand new songs we hadn't even written made, you know. But one of the considerations there was in the idea of sort of crafting the album, you know, feeling like, oh, we have this, you know, we have the 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, but we need a kitchen, you know, sort of proverbial kitchen.
Right.
You know, so it's like, okay, we need this. Now, what do we have that kind of serves that function, this, and this? Well, that one feels a bit like that, you know. And it maybe made it a bit more tangible as well for us. I think it made it easier for that reason, because it's very tangible. But it was always something we had in mind, was to not make a sort of monolithic statement, one single statement from start to finish, which is a great thing to do, but for us, not what we wanted to do with this album.
No, this goes back to what you said, Damian, about the opening track, Death and Interest, is kind of the unpredictable nature that you want to convey, that not every song will be the same, that you can go in all these kind of different directions without blinking an eye, in a sense. Last question.
Sorry, just to touch on what you just said. Lyrically, that song, the idea was to try and make it a little bit of the whole album. So stylistically, because different songs kind of, I would try to maybe lean in different directions for different songs. Maybe pulling a little bit more from poetry or film or rap or whatever. And I think that song was very distinct musically, and then a sort of composite lyrically of all of the, hopefully that was the intention, was a composite, lyrical composite of the whole album to follow.
Final question then. When did the title Exit Strategy pop into the minds of the band?
So
You have the date?
I can tell you.
Under which circumstances?
So we were looking on the 6th of December 2022. We were looking for an album title, and I made the following list.
Oh, you did?
They're all potentials.
And on that list,
you probably don't want to, but can you name a couple?
Don't give away the best one in case we need to use
them. Yeah.
Give away the non-starters.
Broken Images. A Handful of Dust. That's T.S. Eliot reference.
Director's Cut.
Page Not Found.
Okay, that one's good.
Yeah.
Aspect Ratio. I like that.
Aspect Ratio.
Don't we give them the good ones then?
Oh yeah.
That's our next 6 albums for you.
Yeah.
We were looking. It kind of goes back to this intellectualizing thing. Looking for an album title. Wrote down about 50 to 100 album titles. Indiscriminate. Like Error 404 was just what I was looking at on the screen.
Right.
And then there was sort of intuitive things, pulling certain words out, such as French Connection, that film. I thought that film name was great. It's like this kind of bold, strong thing. So then names like that, that's where maybe Aspect Ratio, things like that came.
2-word kind of.
Yeah, so these sort of punchy, and then the word exit kept coming up. You know, but it was all very intuitive, and the words were just sort of coming. And then I shortlisted that, I think, because some of them are dreadful, and sent it to the boys, and the lads liked Exit Strategy. And while they were kind of looking at the shortlist, I was thinking about it, and Exit Strategy felt like it sort of summed up everything the album was trying to say. It kind of did. It's although it was intuitive and it was on a list of 50, that was the album title that said the most about what this album's trying to do.
And it was almost jumping off the page as well, as far as I was
Yeah.
concerned. I was like, instantly that one, you know, it's
Right.
meant to be.
So when I intellectualized it on top of this list, so I'm like intellectualizing the answers now, and I see this one, and I think that one intellectually is giving the most value. Send it to the lads, and Sean, very intuitive. So again, send it to you guys for intuitive, just what looks best, what just jumps without, because you're not going to intellectualize it the second you see it.
I think you like might have shown it to us in person, because I remember you like showing me the list and I said something like, "Oh, Exit Stratefy, that sounds cool," and then you were like, "That's the one Sean picked out too." I remember us like having that where it was like we both saw it separately and like both picked it out of the group as like a standout. I kind of remember that like happening at one of the early stages of like looking through them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I Trojan horsed it. I put a load of rubbish names
Yeah.
and then that at the bottom.
One of those mentalist tricks where you know they're going to pick that one. You just put different things around there and
Post
secret hints and everything.
Exit strategy was actually in bold.
Yeah, exactly. No, but I mean, that's a great sign, right? That everybody's kind of minds are on the same page. So that's excellent. Gentlemen, may I thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you so much.